Hi there, students. To hang by a thread. To be hanging by a thread. This we use to say that something is in great danger of elimination. It's in great danger of failure. So this peace treaty is hanging by a thread. It's about to break. This is an allusion to the sword of Damocles that was held up by a hair. If something's hanging by a thread, this thin piece of cord could break and then the thing falls down. So hanging by a thread, to be in a very dangerous situation, to be close to death. His life is hanging by a thread. The patient's life was hanging by a thread. Very close to failure. My chances of qualifying in the competition were now hanging by a thread. It's saying that a situation is very dangerous, and even the slightest change can decide what happens, and there are going to be bad results, an uncertain state that something is unlikely to succeed, unlikely to survive. It's hanging by a thread. So my chances of promotion are now hanging by a thread. I might, if I'm really lucky, but it's talking about a risky situation, a really difficult situation where the slightest thing could set it off. So to be attached to a single thread. The button on my jacket is hanging on by a thread. There's only just one thread and it's going to fall off. Yeah. Or maybe the nail. I broke my nail and that piece is hanging on by a thread. Yeah. But then we use it more metaphorically. Perilously close to falling, dying, to a bad outcome. Their chances of getting into the final are now hanging by a thread. His life hung by a thread as the ambulance rushed him to hospital. One more slip and I'm going to fire you. Your job is hanging by a thread. It's in danger. It's in a very precarious situation. You could say hanging by a hair as well, or hanging by a thread. So something that hangs by a thread is very likely to fail soon. The ceasefire is hanging by a thread. And could be broken at any moment. The economy is hanging on by a thread, and if things get worse, well, that's the end of it. Okay, so hanging on a thread is when you're in a dangerous situation. The patient's life was hanging by a thread. His career was, or his reputation was hanging by a thread, that if things went wrong then it would not be good for him. Okay, and this is the idea, a risky, unstable situation, where even if the smallest thing changes, if there's the tiniest thing, then you're going to have problems. His political future was hanging on a thread. Or maybe, yes, he was in court accused of murder. His life was literally hanging on a thread, because if they found him guilty, that could be a very nasty for him. Okay, so as I said, this alludes to the sword of Damocles. If someone's life is hanging by a thread, they're likely to die. His liver had failed and his life was hanging by a thread. The future of the company is hanging by a thread, and we need a couple of big orders by the end of the month. We need things to we desperately need things to change, because if they don't, well, we're going to be kaput. Yeah, something's in a precarious, delicate state, and it could easily be lost. He's still in hospital, his life hanging by a thread. The mayor's political future was hanging by a thread. His job is hanging by a thread. If he makes another mistake, that will be the end of it. So, hanging by a thread, I think I'm going to give this a 4.5 informality. Use informally, use semi-formal conversation, semi-formal writing, and stop there. So to hang by a thread, hanging by a thread.